Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 4. If you haven't seen this series before, this is basically something that I do for every single game week where I try to select what I think is the best squad to have in Fantasy Premier League going forward in the next few game weeks. Pretty much just a wildcard draft. I'm sure you are curious to see it because you might be on wildcard yourself this week because it's a pretty popular week to wildcard. But this is going to be my personal opinion of what I think is the best squad to have currently. So even if you're not on wildcard, I think this is going to be a pretty useful video for you because you can see who are the best players to have currently. I'm going to rank them from 1 to 15 in terms of my squad. The number one pick, the first guy I'm going to present to you guys, is going to be the player that I think is the most important player to have in Fantasy Premier League going forward. And then the 15th pick is going to be the player that I'm the least sure about in my squad of 15 players, basically. So yeah, I think it's actually a pretty good week to wildcard. If you are pondering still, if you're still wondering whether you should wildcard or not, I think you should look at this wildcard draft and some other wildcard drafts, I guess, on YouTube and just compare your own team and see how far away you are from that team. Personally, my own team is looking pretty damn similar to the wildcard team currently. Like it's pretty nice. There are a couple changes that I would make, obviously, if I had unlimited transfers, but yeah, it just depends on your team. Very team dependent, obviously, if you want to do a wildcard or not. But yeah, check out the video and see if you are more tempted or less tempted to do the wildcard or use the wildcard button after watching this video, basically. But if you, I did mention that I think it's a pretty good game week to wildcard because I think we have a lot of data from the first 3 game weeks. And if you want to see more about what happened in those first 3 game weeks, you can check out my video from yesterday where I basically went through every single team and looked at how they have done in all 3 game weeks so far. I also look a bit different in that video. I have a beard and a longer hair and stuff because I went to cut my hair today, but that's a side note. But anyways, let's get into the video and go into the first player picked this week. And that's going to be the same player as last week. And that's going to be Mohamed Salah, who I think is the best value player. He's the highest scoring player so far alongside Haaland, but he's also 2.5 million cheaper than Haaland and he has better fixtures. So yeah, I think Salah is just the main priority to have. Both players, both Salah and Haaland, is like the main reason people are wildcarding, to fit in both. Luckily for me, I have them both already. So yeah, Haaland is also in this team, spoilers. But Salah, I think, is the best player to have currently because he has pretty good matches. Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth at home, Wolves away, Crystal Palace away. 4 teams he can easily score some goals and get some assists against. And we've also seen him be a really good bonus point magnet this season, which is a first, really. And I think it's basically down to the new rules. Shooting on target gives you more bonus points, and also getting tackled and winning free kicks, dribbling past people, gives you more bonus points. And I think that really favors Salah compared to several other seasons where he's just been shooting it wide. And yeah, he takes a lot of shots. So the fact that he's getting bonus points from that now, more so than he's losing bonus points, is going to be a huge plus for him. So Salah has just been amazing this whole season. He's always amazing from the start of each season, and I have started, I think, pretty much every single season since he came. I think even when the season he joined, when he was absolutely fantastic and scored like 31 goals in that season, and he started off at 9.0 million, I had him from Game Week 1 in that season as well, the 17-18 season, if I'm not incorrect. And every season since that, I've had him from the start of the game. Even last season when a lot of people were going without him and they had to pay the price, basically. And that's the same thing again this season. He's been absolutely amazing. And there's no reason not to pick him, I think. I think even if you don't have him, like if you don't have him now, I think wildcarding is probably a pretty good idea regardless of how your team is looking like. But maybe not. Maybe you have like the same team except you have Saka and someone expensive at striker position, for example. I would easily do the double swap with Salah in as well, especially if you want to captain him. That's the thing. Do you want to captain him or do you want to captain Haaland this week? Personally, I'm not completely sure. I think I'm leaning more towards Haaland, but there is a case to be made for Salah to be your captain as well this week against Nottingham Forest at home. But yeah, Salah is absolutely amazing, and the same thing can be said for the number 2 pick, which is Trent Alexander-Arnold. I've seen a lot of wildcard drafts without Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I think that's kind of crazy. He is 7.0 or 7.1 now, maybe. He's gone up in price, I guess. But he is looking better than ever, in my opinion, and he used to be 7.5 and everyone had him in their squad. So now that he's 7.0 and he's looking better than ever, and Liverpool are looking more secure defensively, he's looking more involved offensively, I just don't get why people would go without him. I know Robertson is a good alternative, and we're going to get to that eventually in this video, but I think Trent is just a step above him as well, and I think doubling up on them is also a really good alternative, as we'll get to see in this video, I guess. But yeah, Trent is just fantastic. I think he should be in every single squad. I have made sure that with my 3 free transfers, he was the main target that I had this week as well, so I brought him into my own team. I regretted not starting with the season with him. He hasn't gotten any point returns so far in terms of assists and goals, but that has been really, really close. He's had a couple really close calls. Even had a goal disallowed for like a barely like limited touch from Salah last game week. And he's just in great positions all the time to get both assists and goals, and he keeps getting clean sheets as well. So Trent is absolutely amazing. I think he is fantastic. He's obviously not as good of a captain pick as Salah, and that's why Salah is judged higher than Trent currently. But he's just an amazing pick who I think should be in your squad regardless if you have wildcard or if you don't have wildcard. I think you should make it a priority to bring in Trent as soon as possible, basically. Number 3, we have hpxeri, and he is marked in green, which means that he is a new player from last week. He wasn't in my Game Week 3 wildcard draft. He was basically in my Game Week 2 and Game Week 1 wildcard drafts this season, but I dropped him from Game Week 3 after 2 game weeks where he blanked, and that proved to be a mistake because he got 10 points last game week and showed his worth, and he has really good fixtures now coming up with Leicester at home, Man United at home, and Everton away. 3 fixtures where he can get easily a couple goals and assists. So I think SA is definitely worth the price. I regret removing him from the team last week, and I think he's going to be a really good player going forward now. So not really too much else to say about that. He's the talisman for Palace, takes penalties, set pieces. They have really good matches, especially in the next 3. So there's really no reason to drop SA especially. And there's also reasons to bring him in if you don't have him already. So he would definitely be in my wildcard draft as well. And I also have him in my own team, luckily, still. So yeah, SA is fantastic and is the number 3 pick for that reason. Number 4, I did mention him. Erling Haaland is in this team as well. He's higher up than he was last week in terms of the draft. He was, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, when I made the last weekly wildcard draft, 27th of August. He was the number 8 pick that week, because I'm still not completely sure about the Salah Haaland thing. It's worked out to perfection so far, with both of them being absolutely amazing. But throughout the season, they can't keep this up, both of them at the same time. So I think it's just too much money invested in both to have them the whole season. I know my podcast co-host Kevin says that he's going to go the entire season with Salah and Haaland, but I don't think that is the best strategy. I think you're going to have to try to hop on and hop off these guys and try to spread the money around, because eventually the likes of Palmer, Saka, Son for some game weeks, Watkins potentially at some points, Havertz, there's going to be a lot of expensive players that you want to fit in, and you won't be able to do it every single game week basically if you have Salah and Haaland. But so far so good. I think Haaland is potentially the best captaincy option this week as well, so he's once again in the team. If he blanks against Brentford and then has Arsenal and Newcastle, I can easily see why you would drop him for a couple of game weeks and then bring him back on a wildcard potentially. But if you're wildcarding this week, you obviously don't have that wildcard option. So especially if you're wildcarding now, which is the point of this video, I think it's too risky to go without Haaland, especially this week when he has Brentford at home, which is a decent fixture. Should be said that he hasn't had the best record against Brentford. Obviously, he's scored against every single Premier League team he's faced so far, but even against Brentford as well. But he hasn't really been guns blazing, really amazing. That rhymes. Against Brentford in the past few seasons. So I'm not expecting him to get a hat-trick once again for the 3rd game in a row. That would be crazy. But I think he's probably going to get 1 goal, potentially 2. So I think he's still a really good captaincy option as well, and probably a really good option to have in your team on top of that. But there are a couple of arguments to go without Haaland on the wildcard draft this week, but I'm not brave enough to do so. So I'm going to have him in the draft, and I'm going to have him number 4, which might be a little too high, because I think the next few players are also pretty nailed in my wildcard draft, potentially even more nailed than Haaland would have been if I did use the wildcard. But luckily for me, I have all these 4 players now. I brought in Trent with my free transfers myself. I already had Salah, and Haaland, so looking pretty good for my own team at least. But Haaland, he is amazing. He's probably going to be my captaincy pick this week. And for that reason, he's in the squad at number 4, basically. Number 5, we have Antoine Semenyo, who has been a hero of mine this season. I've had him from Game Week 1, and he's scored every single game week so far in terms of getting goals or assists. Bournemouth are looking really lethal offensively, and with Solanke gone, there's more goals to be spread around, I guess, to other players. So Semenyo's looking good, Tavernier's looking good, Evan Nilsson is looking pretty good up front as a striker as well. But Semenyo, I think, is the pick of the bunch. I think he's taken another step up this season. He is the best player for Bournemouth, I think, currently. He's been involved in everything so far, really good when it comes to creating chances. He is a pretty lethal player as well. He's previously played as a striker. He can play as a striker as well when Evan Nilsson gets subbed off. So yeah, I think Semenyo is just absolutely fantastic. Obviously, the next 2 fixtures aren't the best, but Chelsea at home is still a pretty good fixture. Liverpool away, probably should look to bench him that game week, but after that, he has Southampton at home and Leicester away, 2 fantastic fixtures. So yeah, I think Semenyo is just a really easy player to have in the team. He is, 5.6, 5.7 now. something like that. And yeah, that's just a really, really good price for a player that has been fantastic so far. Has returned in every single game week, and he could very, very well do so in at least 3 of the next 4 game weeks. So yeah, Semenyo comes in at number 5. And I recommend him highly as a player that you should get in, especially for those fixtures against Southampton and Leicester eventually. Number 6, we have João Pedro, and he would have been probably a couple spots higher if it wasn't called up to the national team for Brazil. It hasn't really put me off too much when it comes to João Pedro. He's probably not going to play much for Brazil. Didn't play at all in the first game for them. And the second game that might even be played tonight before this video has been released. But João Pedro, regardless whether he plays 90 minutes, 0 minutes, or whatever for Brazil, I think it's the jet lag that has been the biggest concern for me when it comes to him, and returning pretty late from that. But I still think he's going to start against Ipswich. I still think he'll play at least 60 minutes, potentially 70 minutes plus. As well in that game, and that is the main game you want him for. Ipswich have been pretty leaky so far. Well, against Fulham they weren't too bad defensively, I guess, but that is a team to target, especially with how good Brighton has looked. And João Pedro has looked amazing so far as well, getting points. He's also on penalties. He hasn't received the penalty yet, so he can get more points from that point of view as well. So yeah, I think João Pedro is a fantastic pick. I wouldn't be too scared off with the whole Brazil national team call up either, because I think he's going to be playing as well for this next upcoming game week. But after that, he has Nottingham Forest at home, also a pretty good game. Then he has Chelsea away, and then Spurs at home, two potentially good fixtures. I don't think Chelsea or Spurs are that good defensively, so even though they are marked in light red, which means they are pretty tough fixtures, I think that's more down to the fact that it would be a tougher fixture in general. But I also think when it comes to these smaller-ish teams playing bigger teams, it could hamper offensive players, even though their defenses are pretty bad. Because yeah, if Chelsea and Spurs are going to dominate that game, it's going to be tougher for João Pedro to get the chances. So it still is a bit of a detriment to his chances in scoring goals in those games, but he could easily do it against the defenses of Chelsea and Spurs at that point as well. So yeah, João Pedro comes in at number 6 for that reason. I think he's a really good pick still, really cheap, obviously, one of the best cheap forwards, although there are several more cheap forwards that are really good. I'm going to talk about the final one as well, in the final forward spot eventually. But yeah, there are a lot of good picks to choose from in the forward spots, but João Pedro is probably could even be more secure than Haaland in my wildcard draft. But yeah, it's pretty close between those two. But João Pedro is absolutely amazing, and yeah, he's worth the money for sure. Number 7, we have another player who's worth the money, especially seeing the fixtures that he has. Everton at home, Wolves at home. You can't really ask for too much better fixtures than that. Maybe there's a case to be made to have another Aston Villa player up front, but I just think the whole Watkins and Duran thing is too tricky to choose from. I think Watkins is going to play, but he has played 60 plus minutes just about only. He hasn't really gotten 70 plus minutes this entire season, so I'm not so sure about that, but I am pretty sure about Rodgers being a pretty nailed starter for Aston Villa, and he's looked pretty good even though he hasn't had any return so far, but he's been really close. He's been making some chances that Watkins has missed, so yeah, I think eventually the points will come, especially in these next few fixtures, and that's why I think Rodgers is really good value at 5.1 or whatever he is now, seeing as he has gone up in price. But yeah, he's probably been Aston Villa's best player so far this season, and for that reason, with those fixtures, I think it's pretty easy to include him in the squad, and he's just a really cheap option to have, who you could bench as well if you don't feel like if you have 7 other attackers that are really good, you can bench Rodgers without too much complaints, I guess. But yeah, I think Rodgers is really good whether you want to bench him or start him. I think he is a really good option, so he comes in at number 7 for that reason. Number 8, we have Rico Lewis. He has gone up a little bit since last time. He was the number 12 pick in the last draft. Now he's gone up a little bit again because once again he played 90 minutes. So I'm starting to think more and more that he's more secure. It's kind of strange because the longer the season goes, the more he gets 90 minutes each week, the more I'm going to be secure in him starting every single week. But at the same time, as the games pile up, and he's been getting 90 minutes here, 90 minutes there, 90 minutes there, 90 minutes there, and we're going to get Champions League and stuff eventually, pretty soon actually. I'm not so sure if he is nailed on as I want him to be, but if he continues to play for City, he is an absolute beast. He's an absolute must-have in FPL. 4.5 or 4.7, whatever he is now, for a Man City defender who plays basically as an attacking midfielder, which is kind of crazy. So even though the fixtures aren't the best as well with Arsenal and Newcastle, it's Man City. No fixtures are really that bad for Man City. So if Lewis continues to play, I think he's a fantastic asset to have. It's just the playing time that makes me slightly worried. If I was sure that he was nailed to play 90 minutes every single game like Walker did last season, he would be right at the top of my list, pretty much. Like he'd be like number 3 or number 4 in this draft most likely. But yeah, because of the slight doubt about his playing time, I'm going to put him down a little bit of a level. But seeing as he's played 90 minutes so far, no reason not to pick him, I think, for the wildcard draft if you're on a wildcard this week. So he comes in at number 8. Number 9, we have Jarrod Bowen, which is kind of a surprising pick, I guess. Not that many people are talking about Bowen, but I had this inkling last season as well about Bowen. I thought he was going to be going on a pretty good run, and that ended up being the week before he scored a hat-trick. I think it was against Wolves, where he was absolutely fantastic and got, 15 points for people that had him. So I think something similar could happen again. I think the fixtures are really good. Fulham away, Chelsea at home, Brentford away, Ipswich at home. 4 pretty good matches. And we know Bowen from last season, he was really good away from home as well. So I think that could bode well for the matches against Fulham and Brentford. I think West Ham have something going on now. Don't have Europe to think about at all as well. So Bowen's going to play pretty much every single game at his favorite position on the right. So yeah, I think Bowen is just a fantastic pick. He's someone that I really wanted to have in my own squad currently myself, but I'm not going to be able to get him in unless I wildcard. So he would actually be like the main reason I would wildcard if I were to do it, but I'm probably not going to do it because I'm pretty happy with my own team. But Bowen is fantastic. I think he's really great. You could choose, I'm going to talk about someone you could choose at the end of the video. As you can see, there's a section there down at the bottom right of your screen where it says on the cusp. I'm going to talk about 3 players that could potentially get into the squad, and one of them is a midfielder with around the same price bracket as Bowen, so I'll talk about him at the end of the video. But when it comes to Bowen, I think he's just a fantastic pick. He's probably not on penalties, but he is on corners now that Ward-Prowse has left West Ham, so that's another plus from last season. So I think it's really great value. You could go for someone like Kudus as well for $1 million cheaper. I think Kudus has looked amazing so far. I think he's pretty nailed as well to play for West Ham. It's just the fact that he plays on the left or potentially in the middle, which is a lot of West Ham fans want him to play in the middle, but he plays on the left currently, and I don't think he's being put to the best use in those positions. Obviously, his the right wing spot would have been his preferred spot, but Bowen is the nailed-on player there. So yeah, I like Kudus. I think he is amazing as well. Obviously, a fantastic player. I think Kudus is one of the best players in the league, and I think Bowen actually is a really underrated player as well. As a West Ham fan, I'm a bit biased, but obviously, I really like my guys there. So I think either pick is pretty good, but I think Bowen especially, I think he's going to be the high-end scorer for West Ham. And for 7.5, I don't think that's too bad either. He was also close to going down to 7.4. I'm not sure if he has done that yet or if he's going to drop in these next few days. But yeah, I think Bowen is a great pick, so he comes in at number 9 for that reason, even though there are some other good midfielders that I'll talk about eventually in this video as well. Number 10, we have João Wissa. Speaking of good players, the player that I'm alluding to is pretty nicely connected to Wissa, so you probably know by now who it is. It's Mbeumo. But yeah, I have Wissa here, and he's someone you can obviously bench for this next game week. I think the other players you can start for this game week, you can see Haaland, Salah obviously starting, SA, Leicester at home, João Pedro, Ipswich at home. Even Semenyo against Chelsea at home, I think that's a pretty good fixture. I think Bournemouth can score 2 or 3 goals in that game. Rodgers against Everton at home, that's probably the best fixture to have currently. And then Bowen against Fulham away. I just talked about how I think Bowen is going to be really good away. So you could easily bench Wissa for this game week. And then after that, Spurs away, which isn't too bad when it comes to attacking perspective. Brentford have scored a couple of goals against Spurs in the past. I think Wissa actually scored in the opening game week last week against Spurs. So I think he could be a really good starter for that game, where you want to bench Semenyo probably because he plays Liverpool away. So yeah, I think Wissa just fits in nicely with the squad, both in terms of cash. He's 6.1 I think now, so he's pretty cheap still, and he has eventually really good fixtures, and you can bench him this week when he has Man City away. So I think Wissa's going to be really good value going forward. I think he's been overlooked so far this season with Tony out. He is also someone that benefits a lot from that. And he's going to start up front for Brentford, and Brentford have a really good team and are actually on the rebound from last season where they had a bit of a middling season. So yeah, I think Wissa is really good value, and he comes in at number 10 for that reason. Number 11, we have Anthony Robinson. I haven't left him out of the squad entirely. I have dropped him a couple places though, because he has again conceded, and against Ipswich, which was a really good fixture for him. So he has gone through a really good fixture where he did manage to get an assist as well. So Robinson is still a really fantastic asset to have in FPL. I think he's great, one of the best 4.5 midfielders. But the fixtures are starting to dry up a little bit. There are some tougher fixtures ahead. West Ham at home, probably going to concede in that game. Newcastle at home, probably going to concede in that game as well. Nottingham Forest have been pretty good, especially at home at City Ground. and then Man City away after that match, and then they have some tough matches after that as well. So the matches are sort of letting Robinson down a bit, but he's also super attacking. He's been so involved in everything that Fulham have done this season. So I still have a lot of faith in Robinson. I still have him in my team personally as well. And I have a lot of these players actually looking at it now. But yeah, I think Robinson is still a fantastic pick, but the fixtures are starting to dry up a little bit, and he's more like a 4th or 5th defender, which he would technically be in this squad, but seeing as I'm slightly less sure about a more expensive member of the defense in this team, he gets rated higher, but we'll get to that pretty soon. But yeah, Robinson's still great value, even though he's gone up in price a little bit, but he's so attacking. He plays for a team that could potentially keep some clean sheets with Anderson and Sanderberger there now. Really good goalkeeper in Bernd Leno. Robinson himself is a really good player, both offensively and defensively. So yeah, he's just someone that I really like and someone that I'm not too worried about having in my squad, even though the fixtures might become tougher eventually. But yeah, Robinson's still in the team at number 11. Number 12, we have a new goalkeeper, and that's going to be Bart Verbruggen, who was straight back into the side again in Game Week 3. And I think Verbruggen really is the best 4.5 goalkeeper to have for the rest of the season. And he also fits in pretty nicely to the backup goalkeeper that I have as well in the squad. So Verbruggen for me is the best goalkeeper to have currently in FPL. I have dropped a player that I'm going to talk about eventually, who I still think is a decent pick, but I think Verbruggen is probably the best 4.5 goalkeeper to go for currently, because I think Brighton have looked really good so far. And Verbruggen is a pretty talented goalkeeper who is pretty young as well, who's going to get better and better. So I think he's a pretty good player to have, especially with the fixtures that they have. Ipswich at home and Nottingham Forest away at home in the next 2 games. That's really, really good fixtures for Verbruggen straight away. So you could get some extra points from those 2 games. And I think he's just looking like a really good pick currently. So he's number 12, but I'm not too sure about any goalkeeper. So he's just the best of the bunch, basically. So that's why he's number 12, but I still think he's a pretty good player to have. So yeah, that's why he's in my squad, basically. Number 13, we have Jacob Greaves, again from Ipswich. I think he is the best 4.0 defender, both because Ipswich have pretty decent matches for a pretty long time now. And Greaves is also a set piece to himself, and I think he can provide the goods if you need him to. But again, he's mostly just going to be a bench player that you can have on your bench and play him if you absolutely have to. If there are injuries, if there are players that have been subbed off for some reason, if some players are ill, there could always happen some things where you need someone off the bench, and Greaves, I think, is the best player for that price in that price bracket. So he comes in at number 13. I kind of wish I had enough money for Leif Davis, his teammate at Ipswich, because he's just more attacking and more potential points in that way as well. So he's a better pick in terms of just a straight up pick if you want to play him every week. But seeing as we're just going to bench Greaves most game weeks, for 4.0, he's just better value than Leif Davis for this particular squad. But I think Leif Davis, Live Life Love, or whatever his name is, I think he's a better pick, like I said. But yeah, Greaves is just a better fit for this squad, basically. So he comes in at number 13. Number 14, we have the premium defender that I have extra in this squad, and that is going to be Robertson. We are tripling up on Liverpool still with those fixtures that they have. There's obviously not that big of a difference between Trent at number 2 and Robertson at number 14. It seems like a massive difference, but it's just for this team. I think Trent is just a better player overall. I don't think you downgrade too much from going from Trent to Robertson, but I think it's sizable enough because I think Trent is just absolutely fantastic. So there's not too much to basically to make a difference between the 2 players. That was really tough for me to say. But I think Trent is just a better pick. So I think doubling up is a bit risky, but seeing as it is really good fixtures and they've proven so far that they have been really good defensively, I think it's warranted. But there are some players you could go for instead of Robertson if you want to save some money and use more money in attack. Potentially, I'm going to talk about that eventually as well in this video. But yeah, Robertson is great. He's super attacking. He's super high up in the pitch as well. So I think a double up is really, really good. That has been a tactic of the past. Robertson and Trent have been mainstays in FPL for several seasons now and been providing the goods. Robertson, not so much the past few seasons, but it seems like he's more able to roam forward for Liverpool currently than it has been during the last few years of Jurgen Klopp. So yeah, Robertson's still a great value. I think Trent is just superior value in general, but doubling up, I think there's a case to be made for that, even though it is slightly risky. So Robertson comes in at number 14, but I really like him as a pick. I just don't like him ahead of Trent, basically. But yeah, he makes the squad, so that means that I think he is pretty valuable because he is pretty expensive. You could spend the money elsewhere. But I think he's definitely worth it. So yeah, he comes in at number 14. And then 15, we have the backup goalkeeper, which is going to be Mark Flekken. And again, I'm not completely sure I sort of wanted to go with just Verbruggen and just not really care about the second goalkeeper, but I think the 0.5 is worth it because you have that really, really nice rotation. You can already see it with the first 4 games here. Verbruggen against Ipswich and Nottingham Forest, and then you switch to Flekken against West Ham and Wolves at home. So you get 4 home games against decent opposition at least. So I think that rotation just works out really well. So that's why I've picked Flekken, but I'm also not too opposed to just going with the 4.5 and 4.0 defend or goalkeeper dynamic where you don't have to choose every single week. Because, you know, at least once through these 4 game weeks, the goalkeeper with the worst fixture is going to get more points than the other. So that's just how it works with goalkeepers. But I also don't think, I'm not completely like, haven't completely left the 4.5 rotation goalkeeper tactic behind. I know it's really annoying when you get bench points, but annoying is not something that, for example, like AI would care about. Like you should really just play what you think is the optimal way of getting points. And I think rotating 4.5 goalkeepers potentially could work as a way to get optimized points, even though it does hurt those game weeks where you get less points from the starting goalkeeper than you do from the bench goalkeeper. But that's just the nature of the game, I guess. But with that, I have the full 15-man squad here completely. As you can see, there are 6 names: marked with green: Verbruggen, Flekken, Robertson, Bowen, Eze, and Wissa, which are new players from last game week's weekly wildcard draft. So that means also 6 players have dropped out. So let's take a look at those guys, and also let's take a look at the 3 guys that have been really close to being in the squad, but that I, for some reason or another, left out. I'm going to talk about those 3 guys as well right now, actually. So yeah, let's first go through the players that have dropped out since last time. One of them is Diogo Jota, and that comes after the news of Federico Chiesa joining Liverpool. I made the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 3 before Chiesa was set to go to Liverpool. So with him joining, I think there's slightly more competition for places, and I think I just slightly prefer the tripling up with the defenders more than Jota now. Jota as well could potentially get more rotation once Darwin Núñez gets back up to speed after a pretty lengthy summer with Copa America and that stuff. So I think Jota is still a really good player to have. I don't think he is a priority sell. He's not someone that you should really think about selling either if you have him already. But on a wildcard, I think I would just drop him because I think there are better options. I think Bowen is just more secure for minutes. He has equally or if not better fixtures, especially long term. Than Jota, and he's, yeah, like I said, more nailed. So yeah, I think I just prefer Bowen for that reason. So Jota has dropped out, and also just to fit in Robertson, basically. Then we have Palmer, who I think is just a bit too expensive. On top of having Salah and Haaland, I think having Palmer on top of that just makes your squad just a little bit too bad. So I think it's more important to have Trent in the team than have Palmer, because I think the likes of Bowen, Semenyo, Wissa, even those types of players can cover what you want from Palmer. But Palmer is still a fantastic pick, so he's definitely someone that I did consider to have in the squad, but it's just a bit too expensive. Maybe in a couple weeks I might drop Salah in game week 7 in that Crystal Palace away fixture. From that point on going forward, Liverpool have some tougher fixtures, so I would potentially be looking to sell Salah and buy someone like Palmer potentially, or most likely Saka in his place from that game week onwards. Game week 7 is actually when I'm looking to wildcard myself currently, potentially. But yeah, so Palmer, he is a really good player. Don't get me wrong. I had him last weekly wildcard draft, and I don't think it was a mistake for you to add him last week. He did get some points, and he did look close to getting more points as well against Crystal Palace. But Chelsea didn't look quite as lethal against Palace as they did the week before against Wolves. So the hype for Palmer has died down a little bit, but I still think he's a fantastic pick. So yeah, he's great, but he has to drop out just because of the price issue, basically. Then we have Pau Torres, or the Villa defender in general. I've sort of just gotten a bit less intrigued with Villa players in general, or Villa defenders especially, both because they have so many matches coming up. I think they have like 7 matches between this international break and the next international break in like game week 8. Which I think it is the next international break. So they just have a lot of fixtures. I think they're going to concede a lot of goals. Like they've conceded a bunch of goals so far this season. And even last season, they kept clean sheets. They kept, I think, 8 clean sheets. And a lot of them were against like the better teams. They kept a clean sheet against City. They kept a clean sheet against Arsenal 2 times potentially even as well. And I don't think that's sustainable. And I just don't trust them that much. Like I don't trust them enough to have a Villa defender. I think there's more value, especially now that I've upgraded to Robertson, that I have the money to do that. I think Pau Torres is the one to be left out, even though there is a case to be made to have Pau Torres or Konsa or Digne potentially if you want to go that route and be even more a wildcat, I guess. you can go with Digne, but I think Robertson is just better value currently, so Pau Torres has dropped out of the team as well. Henderson is the goalkeeper that I had up until last game week, but I think Verbruggen is just a better asset at this point. I think Brighton are looking better than Palace so far this season, and he also has, well, not potentially better matches. I think Henderson has really good matches now, so I'm not too fussed about having Henderson in my own team, for example, but I think on a wildcard I would just pick Verbruggen because I think he's better, especially in conjunction with Flekken. So yeah, that's why Henderson's dropped out. Jebison has dropped out, and he's actually dropped out of the entire game. You can't even pick him up now, so even if you wanted to have him in your squad, you wouldn't be able to. So yeah, he just had to drop out for that reason, and I've also upgraded. Since I sold Palmer, I got more money to upgrade to Wissa up front there. And that means Jebison or any other 4.5 attacker has gone out by the wayside, basically. And then Valdemarson as well, I've picked Flekken instead. And I think also that Brentford spot is going to be pretty useful, because I did mention, I'm going to get to that on the Cusp player now. I did mention some Brentford players. We have Flekken here, we have Wissa here, and on the Cusp I have Mbeumo, who I was really close to picking in the squad. It was between him and Bowen basically, but I just needed a player, because the double up with Wissa and Mbeumo I think is too early to go for both of them, because you would have to play one of them against Man City unless you want to play several defenders. I guess you could do that. You could do Mbeumo and just start Robinson, Lewis, and Trent. You could do that, I guess. But I think Bowen is just a better pick for the next 2 game weeks compared to Mbeumo. But Mbeumo is definitely someone that I have my eyes on. He's someone that I would for sure have on a wildcard in game week 7 or potentially game week 6 if you want to wildcard that week. But I think for now you could still go without him. I still think Bowen could be better value potentially currently. You also have Kai Havertz, who I was really close to thinking about having in the squad as well. I think he is also really a player, but I'm still a little bit unsure about how he's going to play or how many minutes he's going to play now that Gabriel Jesus is back in full training again. That's going to hamper Havertz's minutes, at least as a striker for Arsenal. So for that reason, I'm not entirely sold on him, but at the same time, Arsenal, especially in a couple game weeks time, they're going to have really good matches, and that's what I'm going to look to bring in Havertz myself in my own team. Seeing as I have Isak currently, it would be a pretty natural switch from Isak to Havertz in game week 6 when Arsenal get really good fixtures. So Havertz is definitely someone that I'm paying attention to as well, and Bowen and Havertz are most likely going to come into the wildcard squad at some point in the next few game weeks, most likely. And the same could also be said for Konate. I think he's also someone that has been overlooked. I think the value between Trent and Robertson is like there's a higher difference between Trent and Robertson than it is between Robertson and Konate, because I think Konate has been pretty good for Bowen so far. He could score some goals as well. He did so in the Champions League for like 2 or 3 seasons ago. Seems like he's pretty nailed. He's 5.0 as well, really good price. So I think Konate is also someone that I could potentially pick in defense rather than Robertson to get more money and to spend it elsewhere. Basically, I could get Konate for Robertson, downgrade Flekken to a backup goalkeeper, and then maybe do something else as well, potentially drop Bowen down to someone like 6.5, someone like Kudus, for example, and then I would probably have enough money to go from Wissa to Havertz, or potentially drop Pedro to Havertz in a few game weeks. So that is something that is on my mind, but yeah, that's for later, I guess. Those 3 players are really close to joining the team. They're also close to joining eventually in the next few game weeks. That could also be a thing that could happen, but yeah, Mbeumo, Havertz, Konate, I think all 3 are really good picks, but I just couldn't fit them into this squad currently for this game week, at least. You also have Ollie Watkins, who I think is a pretty interesting pick in general. I'm just not sold on his playing time, like I mentioned a bit earlier in the video. John Duran has been fantastic so far, and Watkins hasn't played 70 plus minutes so far this season. So I'm just a bit unsure, but if you want to jump on Watkins, if you have belief in Watkins still, this is the week to jump onto him, because he has Everton at home, which is probably the best fixtures he's going to have for a while, especially seeing as John Duran has been playing with Colombia, I think, on the international break, and he's going to return late and stuff. So I think this is the best chance for Watkins to have minutes played, especially if the injury that kept him out of the England squad is just like an international break injury. If he's actually injured, obviously you shouldn't pick him, and I think it's too risky long term as well to pick him just for the price. I don't think it's worth it. So yeah, Watkins is someone you could consider. If you're higher on Watkins than me in terms of playing time, then I think you should probably go for it. But currently, I just couldn't fit him in, especially for that price. I don't want to drop Haaland for him. I think Haaland is just a superior asset currently by quite a lot. So yeah, Watkins is also in consideration, but yeah, I'm not too high on him just because John Duran is as good as he is. I think John Duran is absolutely fantastic. And if he gets playing time at some point this season, he's going to be straight in my team for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me and this weekly wildcard drafts video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a nice game week coming up. If you're on wildcard, let me know down in the comments. Please tell me if you have any other queries, anything else that you're wondering about in terms of your team, whether you're wildcarding or not. I would like to hear from you. And that's pretty much it for the video. So thank you for watching. See you next time, and goodbye.